Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us to the DN35 podcast. I am live from Aldershot, and I thought I would put at least in the background, like they do in a war report, so when they're sort of hanging out of a hotel balcony, so you can see that I'm here, as the smoke still smoulders around me from yesterday's wreckage. I am joined, as ever, by Tom, who is in a very nice room today, downstairs. How is everything down on the south coast as we bookend Hampshire?
Yeah, all right. Thanks.
Tom might be not as positive as usual, apparently. And Henry, how are you?
Just about in one piece, Alex. Just about.
You do know there is a skeleton climbing out from the closet behind you, like you're a Conservative MP.
Joys of living with a teacher.
And Elliot Jackson has kindly joined us as well. He was the man that had to do the longest journey out of all of us, I think. So, Elliot, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me back. No problem at all.
And we are really keen to hear from you as well, because I think I need this podcast to help sort of settle me. Maybe I'm more touched by this because I'm having to go to work on Monday with a load of Aldershot fans. But we shall see. So please do get your comments and your thoughts in, both on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is. And we'll sort of do our best to go through them. Gentlemen, yesterday we went to a team who I've watched almost as much as Town this season. And to be perfectly honest, my assessment of them is they are the worst team I have ever seen play the game of football since Ian Holloway decided to rock up in his flat cap and take a piss on our club. It'll be really interesting to have your thoughts on how it went yesterday and yours, because I want to strike a good balance between being honest and relatively funny, but also not sound like that twat off Arsenal TV who breaks chairs after 30 seconds. Henry, I'm going to come to you because we don't hear from you as often as we used to. What was your assessment? We all went, so how are you feeling and what were your overriding thoughts?
Well, firstly, I think you should be banned from games. I know you got fluky and saw one win, Alex, but generally your record is terrible. And also I've got a part to play. I've got an apology to make because I took someone along, my friend Tom, who has never seen us win, and I'd forgotten that fact. So that's also my bad. But I think, yeah, it was just really concerning performance, really. I've not seen us since beating Yeovil at home, where we were a bit lethargic, but we did enough to beat a difficult team. I think it shows the negative sides of having a small squad. I think we really missed McAtee. I think without him, we really struggled to create anything. I thought Taylor was a passenger for most of the game up front. And, you know, I mean, we've got two strikers really that we use on the books with Lenny. Lenny came on, put himself about a bit, but again, also really didn't have that much of a sniff. And to be quite honest, we deserve nothing from the game, which is really concerning. And that's, well, it's obviously 3 in the league, 1 in the cup, 4 on the spin now. I mean, we were talking before the game, we were expecting realistically at least 7 points from the next 3. If you want to be at the top end, and it is a relentless division and you do need to win these games. But it's a blip. I don't think we should get too overly worried and start making radical changes or anything like that, or even think about it. But I think we do need a bit more support in terms of maybe 1 or 2 extras in for competition and rotation, because I think it shows that we're a bit thin on the ground when you've not got your most creative player there.
Tom, you are always the voice of positivity and coolness as the waters get choppy around us. You were there as well. What were your thoughts on the game? And who is that, Mike? Is that me? What were your thoughts on yesterday?
I agree with Henry that we obviously missed McAtee, and our lack of squad depth definitely showed a bit. Once Lenny and Papaga came on, you didn't really feel like we had anybody else who we could bring on to sort of change the game. And I guess, but I think we've known that for a long time, really. Once we get a few injuries, we have got, in terms of overall depth, we have got quite a small squad. But I still think Kirsty's doing the right thing in waiting to bring the right player in rather than just getting anyone. Because as we've discussed in the past, he got his fingers burnt with Brody that time. I actually thought it was quite an enjoyable day out overall, even though we lost. I thought it was quite. I saw someone in the Crimea afterwards, and he was like, "That's our worst performance for 10 years." I thought that was a bit harsh. It could have easily been different. Paga had that dragged shot. We had one cleared off the line from Taylor. There was one disallowed for offside. All right, it's not, as Hurst said, it's not like we bombarded their goal, but we certainly had chances to get back in the game and arguably win it if we'd have taken those chances. Disappointing, yes. End of the world, no. We're still third, 3 points off top of the league after 15 games. I'd be more concerned that we were really poor from set pieces. I think that was my biggest takeaway.
In terms of defending or attacking?
Defending. I thought they looked, every time they got a throw in round our box or a corner, we looked pretty vulnerable. And I think that was my sort of biggest takeaway from the game. But as a day out, it was great. Nice little grounds. The woodwork, it was a bit of a ding-dong game in some ways. But a couple of nice take finishes for goals. Yeah, it was all right. So what? We lost. I kind of like beyond the stage now in football where I just totally lose it and get really down if we lose. Maybe that's having, not been away and not being a season ticket holder and sort of just following football more generally. I don't know, but I was kind of like, oh, well, we're still third. I'm still enjoying myself.
Okay. I mean, I don't think you've not sold it to me yet, mate. We might need to have a bit more. Elliot, what was your view from your point, which is apparently next behind my child's headmistress, who was also in your similar spot yesterday? I don't know how she got invited, but there we go. What was your thoughts on yesterday and how the mood in the squad has been of general recently during this sort of 4-game losing streak?
Yeah, I think for me, yesterday was probably the most concerning of the lot, just purely because of the calibre of opposition that was being played. I asked Paul Hurst on Thursday if it was potentially a trickier game going into that, having, with them getting lashed 5-0 by Wrexham in midweek, because that they're going to have the tails up a little bit. They're not going to want a repeat performance. I was speaking to some of the people in the Aldershot media, and they sort of said that yesterday's performance was sort of where they've been relatively all season, with just a little bit less luck and quality in certain parts of the game. That obviously you've seen them as well, but that's the first time I've seen the season live, of course.
Not questioning you, more questioning them. I assume they had to walk up the hill and their eyes were a bit fuzzy.
Yeah, probably. Well, that was the media team's view anyway, apart from Tuesday night, which was, in their words, a gutless performance. So we knew that they were going to come flying out of the blocks. So for me, the biggest concern is they started so slowly again. And when I think back to the earlier games this season, particularly the ones that I covered in the early weeks, particularly, for example, Altrincham sticks in my mind. They started so well. They were so good at pressing from the front. And when you're away from home in particular, to quieten the crowd down, to impose yourself on the game, to get your passing rhythm going, I think that's so important. And when you're going away to a team that's got low confidence, you're on a bit of a bad run yourselves, to start slowly. I mean, it reminded me of Wealdstone to start a little bit, in the way that before Grimsby have even touched the ball, they've took kickoff, launched it into the corner, and they flashed across a ball across the face of the goal before Grimsby have even had a proper touch of the ball. And all of a sudden you're thinking, all right, they're here to play a little bit. And it just invited a little bit of pressure. Whereas if you think they'd started a little bit better, and I know it's easier said than done, it's not, you can't, one of the teams isn't going to start well ultimately, but that's for Paul Hurst to work out ultimately. You know, I asked him about this after the game, and he said they'd worked on it and they'd spoken about it in midweek, and it's just trying to figure out what it is compared to the early starts to the season. But if they got the first goal, for example, and started the game well in the first 20 minutes, their heads would have dropped, in my view. And then that's when the quality would have shown, because there's no doubt Grimsby are a better side. Look at the two teams in the league, but you've got to earn that right by starting the game well. And in 3 of the 4 games they've lost recently, if you take Notts County to one side, because I really do think that was just an absolute fluke of a result. Grimsby should have won that game without a question in my mind. If you look at the 3 of the 4 defeats, they've not started well. They were really poor in the first half at Wealdstone, better second half, but couldn't break down a low block and create many clear-cut chances apart from Waterfall's header. Kidderminster, again, first half an hour, they got pressed really high, couldn't play out from the back succinctly, and didn't create a lot, went 1-0 down, didn't have an answer to break them back down. Same again yesterday, didn't start well, really vulnerable from set pieces. I would agree with what Henry said. I don't know where that's come from. They looked a little bit vulnerable at Wealdstone as well, but apart from Wealdstone and yesterday, I've not really seen them have that vulnerability from set pieces. But it was definitely a problem, and that for me was a concern. But they're just not starting games quick enough, and it was something that was a really admirable trait at the start of the season, which made them so good, particularly away from home. So I think Woking and Altrincham stand out for me as examples of that. And that's for me where they've got to really address things, especially when we look ahead to Friday night.
I think it's really, I can only really speak from the games that I've been able to see, and that would be Maidenhead, Wealdstone, Woking, Bromley, Aldershot, and watch Bromsgrove on telly. Aside from Woking, which I thought was a decent performance against a team that came out to play and set themselves out, which might be the difference. I've never seen a Paul Hurst team be outworked before. And they were outworked at Wealdstone. They were second to every ball yesterday. The same at Maidenhead.
Paul Hurst said the same very much on similar lines at Kidderminster. He said it looked like they wanted it more, which is a pretty damning thing to say, really.
And I think that's been the case for the games that I've seen. Henry, what are you going to say?
I just think the midfield was a bit concerning yesterday. I thought Clifton applied himself really well. But in the formation where we are with 3 central midfielders against the team near the bottom, I never felt like we really had a stamp on the game at all. Like we couldn't handle when they pressed and we couldn't get the ball back. Like they really got on top of things for periods of the game. And that's where, I don't know, would Coke have made a difference? But he's not getting in the team, probably not fit enough to play every week. It's just an area of concern really for me. Like I didn't think Fox had a particularly good game, and Hunt, young player, I think he's got a lot to learn in these types of sort of matches really. Because quite often he's a really creative player, but he didn't really get a chance yesterday. It didn't seem like it to me anyway.
I think I can understand why Hunt played, just purely from the sense that you would expect that to be a game where Grimsby are going to dominate the ball, and obviously he's probably Grimsby's best ball-playing midfielder. But I thought he got bullied a little bit yesterday, I have to say. I thought Silla, who was there, number 18, I thought he dominated the middle of the park, driving runs. He just seemed to be able to drive through that middle patch really easily. And I thought it was the first game I've really seen where I thought Grimsby got dominated physically, certainly in central midfield. I would agree with what you said there.
I think
I had to let the dog out. He didn't want to hear any more of it.
We sort of, there was a couple of moments where the players are perhaps showing that they're a bit low on confidence as well, because in the second half there was a chance where Hunt was on the edge of the box and he could have just pulled the trigger. I think there was about 3 of them, wasn't it? Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like there were a few moments, but the one that sticks out in my mind is where Hunt, he's pretty good from dead ball. The ball was laid off to him quite a nice pace. He should have just smacked it, and gone for goal, and he didn't. He tried to play like a short, really intricate pass into, I think it was Lenny on the edge of the box, and then get it back. And the ball just sort of sat up really for him just to have a go, and he didn't. And that's probably indicative of where some of the players' confidence is right now. I think Hunt started the season really well for us, and it was like, he scored that free kick, and his delivery from set pieces was good, and he was playing well. But I feel like in the games that I've seen him in since the start of the season, he's not like Woking, for example. I feel like he hasn't really imposed himself on the game as he did early doors, and maybe he does need a run coming off the bench or something to give somebody else, or maybe we just need to slightly change the formation and go to 4-4-2 and give ourselves a bit more natural width rather than trying to force it, because obviously we have got Sousa and Bapaga who can run at people from the wings.
I thought they would go 4-4-2 yesterday, I have to say, just on that point that you made. I thought they would go 4-4-2 and put Lenny up front with Ryan Taylor, because I feel like Ryan Taylor has struggled definitely in the last couple of games since he's come back from COVID. I thought prior to that, he looked really good. Altrincham, for example. Woking, he was not quite in the game as much, but I think since then he's struggled a little bit. And I feel like Lenny, particularly at Kidderminster, he made a real impact when he came on. He looked lively. And I thought he might just go 4-4-2 just to give him a little bit of help, because they've not had that support to whoever's playing up front since McAtee got injured. I thought Clifton played that role well. I have to say, I do like Clifton in those sort of areas. I do think he's better centrally. I think he's probably one of Grimsby's best players, if not him and Fox, certainly. So I think getting him central made sense. He worked well. He was he definitely was their best player yesterday. But I just thought he might have put Lenny up front yesterday, just to, you're playing a team that are second bottom. He just didn't occupy the centre halves enough, Ryan Taylor, and I just thought he could have done with that extra support.
We've got a couple of people coming. So David Barnaby said it's like 2012, 2013 season all ago, and his Hurst small squad method to be questioned. It took years to get us back up last time. We were willing to wait that long again. Our favourite mortgage advisor, Alec Capicania, said that we were repetitive again and started slowly giving Aldershot from the off, which is what a fair few of us have said as well. He's also asking if anybody needs a flexible rate. He's got some people that can help out. Richard Young has also said the left side didn't work, and this is something we've got to talk about as well. The lack of presence and experience in Corey and Revens showed early on, and once Aldershot realised our only outlet was the right, which is very similar to Bromley, actually. We never really got a sniff. I mean, there's quite a few. You do worry about picking out certain players, but we do have to talk about things. I mean, Revan twice and was at fault for the second goal. And this might go back to Hurst as well. Do we marshal, and do we now throws have changed and long throws have changed? Do we actually tactically organise them as we would do a corner? Because having Revan as the first guy at the front, either he was having an off day or he's just shit at headers, because twice he headed it up into the air and looped it into our own box, which resulted in the second goal, and did it again in the first half. Are we actually doing anything to support those sort of plays? Because when Ben Tozer comes along, they're going to have an absolute field day if that's the case, because it seems every lower league team and national league team has a bloke who can throw it on a sixpence to the edge of your 6-yard box. I don't know what you guys thought of that. I think Revan's been all right, but those two moments did freak me out a little bit.
Yeah, just a couple of points on the ones you brought up. I think just on the squad size, I don't think we're 4 or 5 players away from being right at the top. I mean, we are already near the top. I think it is literally a case of 1 or 2 additions that have to be right.
Can I ask you something on that then?
Yeah.
Think of the 2016 final team. How many of these players would get in that squad, in that first 11? Because on the top of my head, because
obviously McEwen was there for both.
But which one would you have? Would you have McEwen now or McEwen in 2016, or is there any difference?
Honestly, 2016.
Yeah,
I think McEwen struggled a little bit with crosses this season in particular.
I mean, we've got to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, but going through the rest of the team, I think Towler would get in. Although Toto was an absolute rock.
I was thinking over Gowlin.
I think
maybe Hunt for Clay.
I think Hunt would get in the team
over Clay.
Over Clay, or as an equivalent to say Nolan or something. I think Clifton would probably get in the team.
Really, I don't think he would. But yeah,
I think he's been one of our best midfielders this season. I think he's been excellent.
But who? What over Disley?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Because there's no one else who can really replace him.
There was a massive presence in that team, to be fair. But and then maybe I wouldn't put the strikers in, obviously, because we had 2 amazing strikers that season. But I'd probably consider Sousa for his overall season performance. I think he's been
for Arnold,
best attacker, really. So there are a few, but But like just on those.
That point's interesting, then, isn't it? That's a team that just made it up. I mean, we were 20 minutes away from losing in the playoff semi-finals, and I would say this National League is a lot stronger than it was in 2016.
Yeah, and
are we expecting too much?
No, well, exactly. There's 2 promotion spots. We're not the biggest spenders, so I think with the whole positivity around the takeover and the start of the season, maybe expectations are too high. I don't know. It's a long season. You're going to have blips, and you're going to have prolonged periods where you don't do as well. It's about getting out of it as quickly as you can, really. And I don't think having a squad of 4 or 5 extra players would necessarily do that. I think it'd probably do more harm than good. And then on the second point that we brought up a minute ago, I agree. The left side were fairly anonymous. I don't think Curry and Revan really worked down the left yesterday.
I've liked Curry coming in, but given that we needed to, we were off three defeats on a bounce, and we got a team here that have just been spanked 5-0 and have not really offered anything. That was their first win yesterday at home. Was that a mistake by Hurst? Why was Papaga not in the squad from get-go?
I think it was a mistake in hindsight, obviously, because it didn't work. But I think at the time, like, you can spin it the other way. Like, we've lost 3 on the bounce. We've got a fairly small squad. You know, if players aren't performing, then maybe they do need rotating in and out. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was a bad decision at the time, but it just didn't work yesterday.
Is Hurst allowed to use the small squad as a valid excuse, given that that's what he likes to work with, and he's got 3 players effectively made of glass in Wright, Scannell, and Grant? Is that really something he should be allowed to use as an excuse, given that that's his choice? Tom, you raised your hand. Rather politely, may I add.
I think it's a bit harsh to say that it's exclusively his choice. I think you're taking it out of context. He's come out publicly and said several times, I'm looking for a player. I'm constantly looking for players. It's about bringing the right player in. And I think we all agree, who were there when Hurst was here the first time, I'm sure Elliot does as well, that he definitely had his fingers burnt with players such as Brodie, who he brought in, who weren't right for the squad and were disruptive. And he's obviously learned from that mistake, and he's perhaps taken a cautious approach. But yeah, we've still got, I'm not going to count up the squad now, but we've still got a pretty big squad. It isn't just about quantity, it's about quality. There's no point in bringing in a player if they're not better than what you've already got. You're just paying someone for the sake of paying someone at that point. You have to, when you develop a squad, you have to improve it when you bring people in. So I don't really think it's a fair criticism to say that's his choice. If it was an ideal situation, we'd have the money that Chesterfield and Wrexham have been investing, and would have been able to bring in players like Tishmanga and Mullin. But we haven't got that. We're doing it a different way. And so he's working with what he's got. And I think he's doing a pretty good job.
He has also said, though, he likes to work with a small squad, and often criticised last year's. I mean, it was humongous, that squad that we had last year. He has said on numerous occasions he does like to work with a small squad, and I guess the thing is, you can't really necessarily say what players were available at what point. I take your point. It's just whether or not, if you like to work with a small squad and you've got players like Wright and Scannell and Grant who are injury prone, you're leaving yourself vulnerable. I don't know. Maybe it isn't the same. I just think personally, I don't think that's necessarily always a valid defence at times. I mean, he wouldn't expect everyone to be injured, but Wright and Scannell are, Diana Princess Wales Hospital's best customers. They've got a season ticket card, haven't they, there? John Cowie, you are a man after my own heart. Could that one certain striker be from Doncaster? I'm not sure. I agree. I think it is. Get him on the boat.
I think it's interesting. I think that's probably a good example of where that might be potentially like bringing in Brodie. Yes, we all think Bogle could do it at this level, but it's probably going to cost money, and probably going to cost a lot more money than everybody else is on. So when you do that, you run the risk of pissing off everybody else in the squad because they're all sat there thinking, why is he getting 500 quid more a week than me? And he's also quite clearly a bit of a difficult character to handle and potentially disruptive. And
he's not fit either, which is worth throwing into the mix. He's not
playing. And he's not playing.
I mean, most of our strike force aren't fit, so you just join them.
So I think that's possibly one of those, like when obviously Hurst spoke to him, and when he spoke to him, maybe Hurst he said, "Oh, Bogle's not coming." But he hadn't gone into the details of why that's not happening, and that it could possibly be a two-way thing. Bogle said, "Maybe I'm only coming if you pay me this much," and Hurst has thought about it. He said, "Well, do I really want to pay someone, I don't know, 1,500 quid a week when all my other players, I don't know what the wage structure is at town at the minute, when all my other top players are only on, say, £1,000 a week, is that gonna upset the squad?" I mean, you probably would be a bit pissed off if you were working and then you find out that one of your colleagues who's not doing much more than you is getting £500 a week more.
Can I ask a question? Because it's kind of raising that same point when we're talking. Hurst has a fair few times now post-match dug out the players in terms of their attitude and their ability, but at the same time has been quite coy on talking about additional players. And I mean, personally, in my thought process is you've got to pick one or the other. Like you can't berate the players for their ability and their attitude, and at the same time then also be saying, well, I can't pick the player. I'm going to pick the right players. Well, are you picking the right players? Because you're already questioning their attitude already, and we're only into November. I don't know. I just found that a bit odd from Hurst.
I don't think he's ever questioned the ability of the players, but he certainly questioned the character. He doesn't pull any punches. It has to be said. He's good to work with in terms of he's not one of those managers that will come out and say a completely different story to what everyone else has watched. I have to give him that. But I don't think he's ever questioned the quality of the players. I think he thinks the squad he's got is good enough to win automatic promotion. It's just in the last few games, the application hasn't been there. And, it's almost a more damning thing to say about your players than a lack of ability for me. But I think it's interesting with the transfer market. For me, I understood the stance of wanting to be really selective, given what's happened before and given the squad that was available. But I think once McAtee got injured, I expected things to ramp up a little bit more and there'd be a little bit more leeway. I think before that, it was like another forward would be nice. It's not the end of the world if the right thing comes along. I think once McAtee got injured for a month, I think then perhaps that's the only criticism that they could have ramped up a little bit more. But I have to say, I don't think Hurst has done a great deal wrong all season from what I've seen. I do lay most of the poor performances with the players rather than Hurst personally. And I know there's a few fans that are starting to question some of his decision making, but I thought Notts County, for example, he got everything so spot on. Like they were just really unlucky, and I don't think tactically they've done a lot wrong. The slow starts you can say at this point when it's been 3-4, what's he saying to them before the match, perhaps? But I do think that they could just do with a couple of fresh bodies just to give more competition for places, just to give everyone maybe a kick up the bum a little bit, just to do that, because I don't really know what else Hurst can do. From what they're doing in training and everything, and he is well aware that he's got players that he can't rely on fitness-wise. He's said as much with Max Wright in the past. He said that they can't really rely on him at the moment, which is a fair comment. Joel Grant and Sean Scannell are not going to be match fit anytime soon in terms of they're still building their way back up. They are back in full training. And as you say, he's pretty scathing post-match at times. But I think for me, if I was as a fan, I would want that. I would want someone who's going to be honest and say what the fans are thinking. The last thing you want is for a manager to come out and say the exact opposite of what everyone else has watched to defend his players. So it's a fine balance, but I think he's got it about right at the minute, personally, for me. And I've not seen much tactically where he's completely dropped the ball, in my opinion. I would agree with in hindsight, the left-hand side of Revan and Corey didn't work yesterday. I wrote that this morning for my piece this morning, that was one of the key problems. It was the threat down that hand side. And I don't think anyone was expecting Curry to really play, to be honest. That was a little bit of a curveball to all of us. It wasn't one we were expecting. But as you say, other players have had their opportunities. They haven't really taken them. So clearly felt that he was worthy of his first start in the league.
We have to remember as well that they're Division 5 footballers. They're in Division 5 because they are not able to turn it on week in, week out at the highest level that they're able to perform at. They probably have every person in whatever sport they do probably has like a sort of level like this, and this is their absolute best, this is their absolute worst, and they fluctuate in between that level. And
That's
the
the difference,
absolute
isn't
top,
it? It's the consistency.
yeah. But this is it, isn't it? Like they're at the minute, we're not performing well, and because we've got a small squad, you only need maybe a handful of players.
I'm going to start. I'm going to
at
start
the top of that level, and we're going to perform badly.
I'm going to have a small squad klaxon now, I think. just
put a pound in the jar every time.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever I say Tin Pot, look, Elliot, it's been great. I'm very aware. Jamie is from All at Sea Fanzine is going to join us, and hopefully we can look forward to the battle of the banter clubs from last year as BT Sport get two proper football teams on, and most likely the way both teams are performing at the moment, I'd be amazed that either of them can find the pitch to begin with, never mind play a game of football. Elliot, thank you so much for joining us. By all means, please do come back and tell us how things are going. And, when you spot the black Merc that is B0GLE, please do get in touch with us straight away. And we will help stoke those fires. Have you got any last minute thoughts to those town fans out there about who maybe are a bit panicky, maybe like me, who was, I was going to burn them all or make them up Redden Road Hill a couple of times yesterday. And the flag is staying, by the way, people. Fuck you all.
Yeah, I just think patience. I think Hurst is doing the right things. I think they just need the injury list to ease a little bit. They had a fair few out last weekend, and they just need to start well and play their way into confidence. And hopefully, under the lights on Friday night against Southend, that should be a pretty good spectacle. It should be a pretty good occasion. I mean, the last one under the lights was Wrexham, wasn't it? So if that doesn't G people up, then I'm not sure what will. So I think patience is there, but we do need to start seeing an improvement in the performance a little bit because, as I say, I thought Saturday was probably the most concerning one of the season, but still plenty of confidence that they'll turn it around and it's just a blip.
Thank you, Elliot. An absolute pleasure to have you on. We'll hopefully have you on soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
Later. See you later.
See you later, guys. Thank you.
Right, gentlemen. We can't dwell on the past, though I may have to revisit it on Monday at work. We are on Friday night. We are going to be joining the Battle of the Banters as the two most pathetic clubs in the Football League last season rejoin each other and swap notes on what the season was. And Jamie from the brilliant All at Sea fanzine joins us to tell us exactly how Southend's season is going and to tell us exactly what we can expect and how they're going to enjoy those 3 points from us to help kickstart their campaign. Jamie, thank you for coming on.
Good afternoon, gents. How are we all?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I love nothing more than living in Aldershot and losing here. So, I mean, I guess the question is how's it been going? We've all seen the footage of your fans telling your owner, quite rightly, what they thought of him. And all of us here at Blunder Park love an owner that is obsessed with trying to build a new stadium. It doesn't ring any alarm bells with anybody. How is it going? And what can we expect come Friday?
How's it going? Good question. 3 years of just hell. Basically, we've won something like 19 games out of the last 120. Going back to sort of the first of January 2019, probably. So almost 3 years of hell. So yeah, it's going pretty terribly, to say the least. I've really got to kind of go back to the end of last season when we dismissed Mark Molesley with a few games left, and kind of the chairman, who has been in the news a lot, so you're probably familiar with him a little bit, decided that he would just abandon everything he tried to build with Mark Molesley, sort of a young progressive manager who was bringing in players with kind of pace, technique, and the kind of things that you probably need at this level, actually, really. He abandoned that. Phil Brown came in. Phil Brown's done nothing for years. He lost basically every game he managed in India. Failed with Swindon. For some reason, we thought it'd be a good idea to bring him back because the chairman's only got about 5 phone numbers in his phone. And it was a disaster from start to finish. He didn't know the league. He didn't do any research on the league. He thought he would just bring in kind of players with experience and what he called character, which I dispute. Some of the players have character, well, the necessary character.
This is like looking at it in a mirror, I think.
There's a lot of similarities between the two clubs. I was going to say we're kin, aren't we? Really. I think struggling seaside clubs, very very similar in size.
And I mean, so much so that they made that shitty film and used your poor ground as Blundell Park.
Yeah, they did. But what was the the Sacha Baron Cohen one?
Yeah.
Well, that was no comment. But yeah, I mean, incredible, really. And yeah, we've sort of you sort of what you did, brought in Hurst, who knows the league, and he's got obviously a former manager, but one that you had a lot of time for, whereas we didn't really have an awful lot of time for Brown. And you had the key thing for you, I guess, was the new owners. Our owner has obviously got he's been trying to run a football club on his own for years. He's a property developer. He's not a football man. So as you would imagine, he's made a lot of mistakes. He's been too headstrong to do anything about it until a few months ago when he finally appointed a chief executive, Stan Collymore, who I don't know how much you know about Stan Collymore's involvement in the club, but he basically grabbed the chairman, forced him to make some changes and brought the club into the 21st century. We've now got a managerial team that I think most people are pretty happy with. We've overhauling the scouting system because the recruitment has been the main issue why we've been so poor over the last few years. The recruitment's been appalling. And so there is a bit of hope, and we've had the new stadium get planning permission. And I might have to say most supporters are behind the new stadium because I don't know. I mean, Roots, obviously, you guys haven't been there for quite a long. We haven't played each other in the league really with fans attending for a long time. But you will see if you do come down to Roots Hall how bad a state that it's in. It's really not fit. It's a miracle it gets a safety certificate every year, so it's needed. It's going to be a bit of a running joke that we've got 21,000 seat stadium in the National League, but there we are.
It worked for Darlington,
didn't it? It really did. I don't think we're quite in Darlington's league with that kind of absolute batshit kind of.
I'm slightly worried. We should maybe just forego the sort of segregation next week, and we can just almost do like a 4 Yorkshiremen sketch. As we all swap notes. Don't worry about it. I've got a kid over here.
My kids are now coming in, so I knew this would happen. But yeah, carry
on. That's all right. I mean, so I guess what sort of Tom, you're the man in the know. Is there anything you want to ask about Southend and where they're going at the moment? Because you usually do a little bit of research, unlike the rest of us. That looks worrying.
I have just done my usual, how they've done in the last.
Southend is based in Essex. It is now a city.
Well, you've got your top scorer, Rhys Murphy. He's scored 6. So you must be doing something right because our top scorer's only got 6 goals as well.
Rhys Murphy's been, he's a strange one because he's getting quite a lot of stick from our fans because he loves to kind of throw himself on the floor a lot. But I think the issue is he's not been getting the supply at all. And he gets really frustrated, and so he ends up trying to win free kicks and things like that. And it's too obvious the referees aren't falling free because you have to get gunned down anyway to get penalty at this level. We've discovered in the last, few weeks, it's really very very difficult. So I don't know what he's kind of doing. He's just frustrated, but he's got 7, and he probably could have had more as well. He's a real threat when he does get the ball in the box, but the issue has been the supply line.
And your manager, Kevin, is it Kevin Maher?
Kevin Maher.
Maher. He was a former player, right? Has he been a popular appointment?
Very, yeah. He played more than 450 games for us. So he was a midfielder, played for us in our most successful ever time, skippered the side from League 2 to the Championship. So yeah, really popular. He's got his pro license. He's got a good reputation as a coach, and he's brought in Darren Curry as his assistant as well. Mark Bentley, who's another very popular centre midfielder who played for us. So we're hopeful that management team can be the catalyst really to start turning it around.
How have you found joining the National League? What have you? Our seminal moment really was about 2 weeks in when we lost 5-0 to Braintree. Have you had that moment yet? And what have your general thoughts been of the league and the embarrassment of dropping down here? Has it been as bad as you thought, or has it been relatively okay?
I've been impressed with the quality of the division. I knew it was going to be a good quality division because we've seen the signings that some of the clubs have made over the summer. But we haven't really had that savage beating yet. I mean, it was quite at Dagenham a couple of weeks ago. We were 0-0 at half time, first game of Mayer's career, Mayer's sort of tenure, and we lost 3 goals in 8 minutes in the second half. And we had Dagenham fans who, with respect to Dagenham, we've always had the upper hand over Dagenham, since we've played each other, which hasn't been for that long, really. And they were singing Southend get battered everywhere they go. And actually, lots of fans have decided to take that one on. That's quite a popular ditty at the moment. Woking fans were singing along with that yesterday. So that's fun.
Yeah, wait till you get a Wealdstone. That's fun.
Bromley was a delight, wasn't it, Alex?
Bromley, I'm so disappointed that fat flailing goalkeeper has left and hasn't come to Blundell Park. I've never seen a club like it. First and foremost, as I thought I messaged you last night, all the National League seems to be for me is they send us to some shitty suburb of London that I have no idea where it is. And then we go stand on a step with no roof. It's pissing with rain. There's 3 steps there. You're all parked in with that and a burger bar. You lose 2-0 and you go home. That's all the National League is. You just go, oh, what's wrong with the M1 this week? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. It feels a bit like that, doesn't it? I have to say it's been quite a humbling experience, losing comfortably as well. I don't want to do any of these clubs down because we've been well beaten. We can't say, we didn't deserve it or anything, but we've been well beaten by some of the clubs, and they're well-run clubs, and some of them have got a fair bit of money behind them. But it is humbling to be losing to a team that you can't even point to on a map.
So we're coming off the back of 4 straight defeats. Like, what is the Southend view going into Friday's game? Like, are you thinking might go in there, and Blundell Park historically over the years when we've not been performing is quite a difficult place for a home team to play. Like, is there any sort of, we could come in there, keep it even for 20, 30 minutes, get them a bit restless and go and nick something? Or are you more sort of pessimistic?
I'm in 2 minds really. I hear what you're saying because Roots Hall's very similar. I think a lot of clubs will come down and think, well, let's keep the fans quiet and let them get on their backs. I think we will. We've started games relatively well under Mayer. Saturday we didn't start so well, but if we can, I think we've got reason to be optimistic. You have lost, I think it's 4 in a row, so we're improving. But we're improving slowly, and the players really aren't of the quality required. That's the main issue. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see 1 or 2 in before Friday. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really tough game because I think despite the fact that you're on a run, everyone goes through that little blip, and I think you've got some real quality players. I mean, some of the signings I was really impressed with. McAtee, I think I was particularly impressed with that signing, and I like the little winger from Darlington, Sosa. And yeah, there's a few sort of stood out, and Ryan Taylor was like a really good player in League One a few years back. So quite a lot of quality. And to be honest, we don't really have much in terms of quality. I'm a bit concerned about some of the injuries we might have in ahead of Friday as well. So I think we'll want to try and contain for the first 20 minutes, half an hour. I think we'll probably be hoping we can catch a goal from a set piece or on a break or something, but I'm not particularly hopeful, to be honest.
I'm glad. I mean, it's. I guess the question is relegation a real concern? Have you turned a corner, or are you a little bit like we used to be, where unless you get this guy out, you're not going to go anywhere because he's going to kill you by death by 1,000 paper cuts?
Again, I think it's a bit of everything. I think there is a concern about the fact that the owner is ultimately in charge, even though he's appointed a CEO. We've got Stan Collymore in as a senior football strategist. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, he's kind of doing a lot of bridge building away from the pitch because our reputation has been seriously damaged over the last few years. New management team. I don't know. I mean, relegation is it would be a disaster considering. I mean, I think there's like a mini league now in the National League where the top 14 clubs, maybe 14, 15 clubs, are good sides. A lot of them, you could probably parachute the entire top half into League Two and they'd be fine. But there are sort of 5 or 6, including us down the bottom, who just really aren't up to the level of the others. And if we can kind of come out on top in that mini league, you would have to say it's November now with the resources we should have in compared to some of those clubs, and the fact that you can sign players all through the season, and the fact we've got new management team in. The chairman does seem to be kind of accepting that we need to change the structure of the club. You know, it will take a lot of time for this to come right, but I think the building blocks are in place, and I think we will slowly start to climb away from the very, very bottom. But I can't see us finishing the season any higher than 15th, 16th because we just haven't got the quality.
Has the fans' mindset changed as well? One thing that we struggled with for far too long was Wisehurst bringing in this striker from, I don't know, East Thurrock, who's scored like 18 goals when we could just get some bloke from the League Two. Have fans accepted that, or is it still taking a while to really get there? Because our histories are all but identical. Like, so I can only imagine you're going through the same process that we did 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair. I think there are still some fans who struggle with it. You just every now and again, I think everyone kind of gets a bit, oh, I can't believe we're losing to such and such. But I mean, I do think that our fans, generally speaking, came into this season with open eyes, knowing how poor we were last year and the year before. There wasn't many Southend fans tipping Southend to go straight back up at all. Quite the opposite. So I think we had realistic expectations. Most people, you always get a few people who just assume that non-league is a pub league and will just stroll it. But most people, I think, expected us to be like this. I think when it comes to players coming in, I think that's something that we haven't really kind of signed anyone from a lower level yet. So I think we probably need to start doing that, get realistic with some of the signings. The players that Phil Brown brought in the summer were cast-offs from higher leagues, really, and it hasn't worked. So yeah, Mayer and Curry and Collymore will have different ideas, I hope. And we have to respect the level. I think everyone who comes down to this level maybe takes a year or so to find their feet, and unless you're in, Bristol Rovers obviously came back straight back up, but there's not many. So yeah, I mean, we go on.
No, sorry, don't mention Bristol Rovers. It hurts us. I mean,
I apologise.
They got some help. Poor Ross is never forgiven, or whatever his name is, Ross Joyce. He's been forgotten already by me. But
bad example, wasn't
it? Yeah. Oh, dagger to the heart. But yeah, I mean, what are your? Henry asked it, gentlemen. Have you got anything to ask Jamie before we allow him to go and we can sort of wrap up our show? But have you got anything to ask Tom, Henry?
Just a score prediction.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Grimsby.
I'll take it. Let's shake hands now and save everybody the petrol and the carbon footprint. It's going to be weird. At least it'll be on telly, so we could all, we all get to see Chris Hargreaves gush over town again, which is always nice. Tom, what are you going to ask? That was a knowing look. That was.
No, nothing. That was a pretty comprehensive roundup. Thanks.
I'm waiting for. I think we should play Collymore bingo. Like when the BT coverage starts. When does Stan Collymore actually get looked at? When did he get on camera? I'm going for 2.5 minutes into the show.
It's great having Stan involved. It really is. The fans are really happy he's involved, but he is going to drag us into kind of Hollywood FC Wrexham kind of territory in terms of media coverage, and I don't think we want that because we're not good enough to back it up. So it's going to be very embarrassing.
That was certainly us last season as well. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. Anybody who's is looking for someone to follow and feel slightly better about themselves football wise, please do follow the All At Sea fanzine because it gave me some hope last year, even though we finished below you.
How the hell did you manage that? I still don't know.
There's this guy called Ian Holloway. He's really good at bullshitting. He should get run for PM.
He can. Phil Brown's already queuing up behind him in the old job club, I think.
Oh my god, yeah. The outfits
Dinosaur Job Club.
Yeah, him and Russell Slade as well. But Jamie, thank you so much. Good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously, as usual, cliched apart from Friday. And we shall see you very soon. Thank you very much.
And to you. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Gents, I mean, we're on a bad run and I'm not feeling very happy. I'll be honest. I mean, I don't want to share my...
Alex. This is how it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be honest. We didn't cover it, but do we need to talk about McEwen? Because I don't think we covered it, did we?
No, I very briefly mentioned it.
I'm getting worried.
He's not the only one that's not performing, but he's not performing at his best at the minute. I think it is fair to say, but he's not the only one. He
turns into one of those arm flailing inflatable tube men you see outside American car dealerships when a ball gets crossed in to the box. I'm slightly worried about it. I can understand the physicalities there, but I am slightly concerned. At least we've got some hope. So if Crow, at least he's got some competition, I guess. And my only good comment other than that was Erika Souza is a person on FIFA with an overall rating of 46 and someone has randomly given him 5-star skill rating as well. So he can do step overs to galore, but he can't pass. Is there anything you want to add before we go? Because we get into that time where it's sort of people, their interest will wane. Tom, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of news this week. Danny Rose's loan at Darlow's been extended till January.
Thank fuck.
Jazz, Gundry and Louis Adlard have joined Brid and Cleetown respectively for a 1-month loan after spending just over a month at Frickley. The Halifax game at home, which is our first game in the new year, has been moved from the 2nd of Jan to the 3rd of January now, 3 p.m. kickoff, because that's now
an absolute pain in the arse, that is.
It is, yeah. And GTFC women drew this afternoon with Grimsby Borough 0-0.
In Nel Classico. That's the name of it. I've invented it. I've copyrighted it. We're getting it on a T-shirt. Nel Classico. Okay, nobody else is impressed with it. Right, let's have a look. Some people have come in with positivity. So our favourite mortgage advisor's back. Alex Capicania has said Bogle has not been... Oh, no, that's not right. That's not the one I wanted. It's at that point we just need to ground out a win to get back on track. Ash Thompson as well said 100% got faith in the current squad once injuries aren't an issue. Hope there's a response to the poor run of form on Friday night. I'll be honest, Ash, I've been hoping for that for the last 3 games. It's not happened yet. I'm just too close to it. I don't want to go to work on Monday.
I think it is one of those. I think we just need a win to get a bit of the mojo back that we had at the start of the season. But it's difficult. It's a competitive league. So when you're not at your best, even teams that are struggling like Aldershot can thoroughly deserve to beat you. So yeah, big test on Friday. It'll be interesting to see the crowd if we don't play well, to see if it still sticks with the club and the team in the same way that it has done for that. I hope so, and I think they will, but be interesting to see because this is the first time under new owners this season where we've had a prolonged period where we've been struggling. So
yeah, and what the gate will be, having lost 4 on the bounce and it being on TV, that'll be interesting.
And a Friday night.
Yeah. If we can sustain the 6,000 we have been getting.
And I mean, and it's hard, isn't it? And then one thing you tried to make clear is we can criticize players and we can criticize performances, but that doesn't mean we necessarily want everything to change. I don't want Hurst to go. The people that are asking for him to go should be sectioned, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
no.
And it's just a journey. This is going to take time, and it's going to take a bit of time to get used to it. But I think there are things where you can legitimately criticize things and have conversations about, well, what can we do to improve this? What's he got wrong? And will he learn from it? Ultimately, we know that Hurst does. And as I said last season, we've gone from this banter club who finished rock bottom of the Football League. We are third, but we do need to...
It all needs to be put in context, doesn't it? Like 15 games in, we're third. We've played some really bloody good football this season. And overall, I think if you asked anyone that we'd be averaging 6,000 after 15 games in the league at home, we'd be third, scoring loads of goals apart from the last couple, I think we'd have all bitten your hand off at it. So, yeah,
Exactly.
I think it's important to put it all in context. Yes, yesterday was disappointing. The last few games have been poor, but I think when you put it in context, it's been a cracking start to the season. And I think under old management and ownership, maybe we would decide something stupid. But yeah, I think the new owners, I think there's too many level heads, and I think they will understand that it's not going to be a completely straight upward trajectory. There's always going to be blips. So yeah, everybody just needs to keep us faith.
Right, we've got a guest. He attended a game yesterday. He hasn't been to a town game for a while. How did you find it, and what were your thoughts overall? Did you enjoy going? Was it too loud, too quiet?
Loud.
Was it loud?
Yes.
Did you like that, or was it a bit too much?
Bit too much.
Bit too much.
Yeah,
And what did you think of the football?
very good, but the ref deserved a big smack because he was doing loads of things wrong.
He did loads of things wrong, did he? I mean, we haven't even got on to the ref klaxon today. Are you going to come back, or are you going to now start supporting Aldershot? Or are you going to be a Grimsby fan?
Still we can see.
Thank God for that. Is there anything else you want to say before I let you go?
Yeah.
He's been asking me for a while to come on, so I thought I'd say it. So do you want to say hello to everybody? Just give them a wave. Good. Great. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll go make tea in a minute. Off you go.
I'm hungry.
Hopefully that makes everyone feel better.
Better analysis than we've ever managed.
Yeah, that's true. Henry was there his first game as he watched Peppa Pig, and we were both slightly envious that he could do that. Gentlemen, is there anything you want to add as a closing statement to everybody before we go?
Nah, I just had my keep the faith waffle. So I think
Good
that's
man.
basic. Just got to keep it all in context, don't you?
Tom, have you got another keep the faith message, or have you going to lay into them, or have you got any passing ending comments really as it goes a bit live and kicking over here?
I think I pretty much said the same thing as Henry at the beginning when you asked me for my thoughts. So I'm going to keep the faith as well.
It's a tough one, but I mean, we're in a hell of a better position than we used to be. I think it will push Hurst to change something. I think he'll be looking, and maybe he'll take a gamble on some of those players that he might not necessarily think the attitude is perfect for. Or he might just bring in a twat that, disrupts the squad a bit. But that might not necessarily be a bad thing, because maybe they're all a little bit too comfy at the moment.
Why do you say swear?
Oh yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah. I mean, he sat next to me yesterday, so that all went wrong anyway. He learnt words that he should never learn. But there we go. Look, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Gentlemen, it's so good. It's all old school podcast today. Old school pod. It is great to see you all. Hopefully we'll see everybody very shortly. The flag will be back. It is not cursed. It is not cursed. I might be. What is that? Yeah, it's not cursed. It's brilliant. The flag is amazing, though it is slightly too big. But thank you, everyone. Anybody got anything else to say before I get hijacked? Apparently. Good. Perfect. Great stuff. Thank you, everybody. Speak to you all soon. We will leave you with What do we want? Do we want the theme tune, or do we want the inspirational video we did at the start of the season to cheer everybody up?
Inspirational video.
Inspirational video. Okay, right. It's about 3 minutes long, so I'll say goodbye to Tom and Henry now because we're not waiting around.
Right.
See you all later. And Charlie says goodbye too.
Yeah.